All right. Hello, everybody. Man, we have ultra special guests. Ultra special guests this week.
Everybody. There's never been this many people on the show before.
There's so many people.
The party. We got Dax and Adam from How About Tomorrow podcast and all their other various ventures. We're going to talk to them about all kinds of stuff, I'm sure. Laravel versus JavaScript, coffee.
Oh man.
What a weekend.
Lots to cover.
Big weekend on Twitter.
Great timing for this.
Let's just start. You guys have backgrounds. You got into computers at some point. Nobody cares about that. Let's just start.
Let's jump in. I gotta assume everybody knows
great.
who you guys are.
Yeah. So welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. Super exciting. We do want to talk about Laravel JavaScript. Want to talk about you're selling coffee out of a terminal. Adam's working on a course. Nobody knows what SST is. It's gonna.
I don't know what SST is. Yes, I have no idea. And let me tell you, this is the funniest thing. I love Dax's Twitter persona. Okay, and I have actively not figured out what the fuck he's doing. Like, I don't know what SST is. Like, I don't know. I don't really understand if you work there, Dax, or you own it, or even how it makes money. Like, I don't want to know anything about it because I just love your vibe. And I'm like, if I know too much, it's going to mess it up. Like, I don't want to know anything about it. It's some JavaScript-y, AWS stuff. Good. I just leave it there. So I'll probably learn more today, but
it's funny because that's I hear this so much. It's like, I think our marketing is really good in terms of people like hearing the literal name, but it just doesn't go further than that. Like, nope. Everyone's like, I've heard of this and I think I'm supposed to say it's good, but like, I don't know what it is or what the point is, or I've never looked into it. So very common situation.
It seems to tie into the job. As soon as I see like Next.js, I just black out and I just like don't go farther than that. So
yeah, me too.
But all your code snippets are awesome. So I'm like, oh man, look at it. It's like he's deploying AWS stuff with like one line of code. This is amazing. I should figure out what this is. That would be
cool. I should investigate, but I'm not going to.
But I'm not going to because I don't want to ruin the vibe.
Yeah.
I also have this question. SST, you work there, right? They pay you. This is your job. It's not just like three friends working on an open source thing, right?
Yeah, it's funny because I guess, ultimately, like we are three friends working on a thing, and I guess we come off a certain way, but people are always surprised to know that we're a YC company. We are venture funded,
didn't know that,
by serious VCs. We're a very serious business, with grown up serious stuff like money and things. But
Adam
this is the type of company.
I think you overcompensated a little bit. You just like went way too hard. No, it's serious. It's very serious.
No, it's real. It's definitely real.
You don't have to posture. I'm sorry. We know what SST is for sure.
No, I mean, I only say that to contrast with this is the type of company we wanted to build, even though it is those things. Like, we just want to stay three friends having fun. That's why, like, our tone is what it is. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love the co-founder thing.
I did not know you were YC backed. I did not know you were venture backed. That is very much news to me. So
yeah.
I didn't know the venture back part. I didn't know YC, but I didn't know the venture back. I just assumed it, but I figured the money was coming in somehow.
I had a tweet a while ago where whenever people find out that we're a YC company, they're always like, really? You guys? Like, everyone's so surprised. And I'm like, at some point, I just start being offended, I think.
Mm-hmm. We're breaking the mold here, All the other YC guys are a certain style, Guys have a little different tack to it.
Yeah.
Which is good.
And in terms of money, the company's history is a little weird. So I joined the team 3 years ago, but it had been around a little bit before then with a completely different product. And that product still makes money to this day. It's just we haven't touched it in several years.
Really?
Reason being is just the space that's in. We saw a ceiling with it, so we needed to pivot to something else. And it's still related. Like, the other tool was a CI tool for companies in the serverless space. It just oriented around a certain framework that wasn't really growing, so we had to just do our own.
That's such a nice way of putting that. Wasn't really growing.
Yeah, I don't know. What's the who are we talking about here?
The serverless framework. I don't know if you guys
serverless framework. I remember them. Yep.
They're the most confusing framework ever because they own serverless.com. So when I was first like trying to learn, okay, what the hell is serverless? I kept landing on serverless.com and I was like, is this like the concept or is this like a specific framework? Right. So they just had great domain positioning.
Great domain.
For years.
Such a great domain. There's nothing better than a great domain. It's
man, that's
so
awesome.
top of my list. Yeah.
So they actually, I would say, made it as a framework. They grew to a pretty large like usage base, enough so that our previous product could make money just serving people in that ecosystem. But they just kind of went sideways after a certain point, and if they're not hyper growing, we won't either. So that's why eventually we said, okay, we need to do our own framework. There needs to be an angle for us to like, you can't just decide to start a framework, you need some kind of hook. So eventually found that, and we started our own thing, and that's what we've been working on for the past 3 years. And our new products are oriented around our own framework, and it's growing that way.
Cool.
Do you guys have an actual product?
Sorry?
Like, is there a product for sale yet or not yet?
Yeah. So the new framework we started 3 years ago, we're on like, it's just been a lot of exploration and figuring out like what exactly we should do. The newest version of it, which we're calling Ion, is it. Like that's like our like, we don't have any better ideas now. We've kind of went through the years, made our mistakes, figured out exactly what we need to do, and this is like our final bet. And it kind of fixes all the problems we had in the past couple of years. We do have another product that's the console, which is an optional thing that people using the framework can use alongside once they're in production. It's pretty small surface area wise, so there's a lot more that we need to do for it. We're actually working a lot on it this week and the next week, but it's just a classic open source situation. You just need to build two really good products, one the open source one and one that works with it. So it's a lot of work.
It's a work, but if
a lot of
making
making fun of people.
It's great. Yeah, a lot of that.
That part's going fun of a lot of people on Twitter.
That part's going great. You're crushing it on that front. Yeah,
people love it. Yesterday, I sent my team the screenshots because I had some tweet where I used the word idiots in the tweet, and someone was like, quote tweeted it being like, oh, like I don't know, someone was upset, seemingly upset by it, and then they also replied to me, and I just replied to them with the word idiot without saying anything else. And then they followed me. So here's the thing: the people want this, is what I've learned.
Yeah.
No,
this is what they want.
I love having you and Aaron on the same podcast here. This is just like the yin and the yang.
Can we talk about the time where Dax was the meanest person in the world to me specifically? Dax, do you remember this?
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, this is a good one.
There's no way he remembers this.
Of course he does. This was one of his best. This was thermonuclear destruction on Twitter. I had just gotten laid off. That's not
even that long ago.
It's not even that long ago. I got 1 million kids. I got like 4 diseases now. I just got laid off. And I'm hanging out on Twitter, unemployed, trying to scrounge up some food in the street for my family. And I'm like, all right, Dax has a tweet. I'm going to reply and I'm going to be snarky. Dax says something like, oh, we're working on something that nobody knows about. If you beg me, I'll release it tomorrow, or I'll release it today, or something like that. And I just responded and said, no, I'm good. I'll wait. Dax responds and says, oh, I'm sure you're tired of begging people to hire you at this point, huh? And just like from outer space, nuclear warhead, everybody's like, whoa, dude. I think Jay responded with the ref giving a red card. Somebody else. Yeah, it was just like, oh, I gotta log off, man. That was brutal.
I think at some point, everyone has intrusive thoughts that enter their head. They're like, you're like standing in their grocery store and you're just like, what if I just smack the person in front of me on the head or something? That started happening to me with words. And then at some point I was like, I just have to say it. So now when I get an intrusive thought, I just have to do it. I have no control anymore. So I'm sorry for the casualties.
I can't co-sign that strategy, but I'm happy it's working.
It's not a strategy. It's just like maybe a disease or something. Disorder.
The world needs all types,
maybe.
Got to cover all the bases.
I feel like Adam is waffling on what he wants his online persona to be. What's the story, Adam?
I think my default is to be an Aaron, but
Okay.
I become whoever I hang out with, and I hang out with Dax a lot, and I think
Yeah.
that's pulling
Ah,
me.
you can blame me.
It's pulling
Yeah.
me towards this kind of like hateful, spiteful person.
Yeah.
I don't
yeah,
love
I buy
it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean,
Is
I'm
he
a
actually,
Midwesterner,
though?
so I
don't
don't-
know.
I
I don't
don't
know if
like-
he's actually that.
no, I think Dax is. We've talked about this a lot. It's like
Mm.
the East Coast versus West Coast thing. Like
That's
East
That's
exactly
Coast.
why
what's
I
going
vibe with
on.
Dax.
Yeah,
'cause I
exactly.
get
Actually
it.
more
what's
cut.
going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is his way of
Mm.
being kind and polite. Like I get it. This is it's the East Coast.
Just another reason why I don't like New York City, because people think being mean is being nice. It makes no
I actually
sense to
don't
me.
like. I don't like New York either. I'm Team
Oh,
Aaron on
Thank
that
you.
one.
Okay, what
is
Thank
this
you,
thing-
guys.
I always see people talking online about you two fighting about New York. What's the deal with that?
Objectively, New York is terrible, and Ian loves it. That's basically.
I'm
That's-
I think
assuming
it's
that
the best
Aaron
place
has like
in the
just been to
universe.
Times Square and then that's
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
No,
Jackson.
I went.
He's
I
been
went
to Times
the,
Square and he's like, there was a naked guy there and it was dirty.
Listen,
He's like,
listen.
I ate at a Sparrows and a Burger King and the food is terrible. Like, that's the whole analysis he's giving.
No, first of all,
Yeah.
naked is fine. Naked and pooping is worse. And it wasn't a Sbarro. It was a Chipotle at the bottom of the Empire State Building. And I took it back to my room and ate it in the hotel. That is a
Okay,
true
no,
story.
we gotta
Literally
all.
true.
Ian, do you live in New York?
I live up an hour north of New York.
Suburbs.
Yeah,
He lives in
okay.
the suburbs.
I live in the suburbs, yes.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, we have to all go and fix Aaron's and I think Adam's
I know.
perspective on it. There's just no way that someone could truly hate New York. It just feels
It's
impossible.
impossible.
No. There's no way you could actually enjoy New York. I think people cope with
Seriously.
New York. They
No.
tolerate it. It's just everybody has a different tolerance. There's
Yep.
no way you can enjoy. My soul hates New York so much, and I've been there like a dozen times. So it's not
Oh.
like I've
Oh,
been one time.
Vindication.
I just can't imagine that other human beings actually enjoy it. That's how I feel about New
Best
York.
place. It's the best place. I also just feel like your business will be more successful if you're in New York. Like I wish I moved to New York City. I feel like I would be even more successful just living there. You got the energy of the city, all the people, the business,
Yeah,
everything
See,
look at
but
about
me.
you
it.
Look how great I
didn't.
am.
You didn't move there
Yeah.
because you know
Are you from
that
there?
the cost is too high, Ian. The emotional cost is too high.
The actual cost is too high.
the
kind of
actual
more the
cost.
issue.
I lived in the city for 11 or 12 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Pretty much my entire adult life. It's like I just keep moving to places that people hate. But again, it's just because they only go to the Times Square or the Times Square equivalent. I'm
Right.
convinced.
Yeah.
By the way,
I've been
okay,
all
I
over
know
New
I
York.
know that New York is dirty. The entire time I lived there, though, I just was blind to it. I like didn't. I was just everyone's like it's so dirty. I just straight up
not
just
that
did not
dirty.
see it
Exactly.
at all.
Exactly.
It's not that dirty. On big city scale, there's other big cities way dirtier than New York, way dirtier. And for much like the percentage of New York that's like either bad or dirty or whatever is much smaller than other cities. It's like every other city you go to, it's like, okay, you got 2 blocks where like it's nice in the little 2-block zone and everything else is terrible. New York City, it's like all of Manhattan is good and big chunks of the outer boroughs are good. And like, it's great.
Did you
All
know,
the
Ian,
food.
there are other places in the world where it's 70 degrees in the evening? Did you know that? I don't know if you
Thank
know that.
you, Adam.
Trust me, I do know that. That's like,
And you
as
don't
I
have
get-
to live in New York.
Yep.
as I get older, I'm like, I got to get out of New York. Like once the kids are out, I'm like, just New York State, like just the weather wise, I'm just done with the weather. Like I just want to be warm all the time. Like I am getting to that point. Like I used to like the 4 seasons and all that stuff, but it's wearing on me. I'm like, man,
Hey,
cold,
if you want
snow.
to be warm all the time, I've got just the
I
spot for
know,
you.
I might have to get
Yeah,
down
Miami,
to
it's
Texas.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dallas.
I
It's
just
great.
discovered Miami last year. I'd never been really into Miami, and I wasn't sure what I'd think about it, but I went, and it was awesome. It was great. We had a great time. It was good stuff. I only spent 3 days there, but I got to get down there again.
You know,
There's a lot going on.
someone showed me a trick the other day where if you're familiar with a city and you ask ChatGPT and you're going to a new city, you ask it
Mhm.
like, "Oh, what's the equivalent neighborhood to like the one you're familiar with?" It does like a fantastic job. It like it can like describe another
that's
city in terms of neighborhoods you're
interesting.
familiar with, and it works perfectly.
GPT coming through again. That's a great trick. All right, so let's cover Adam. We should cover a little bit about what you're doing before we go dive into the controversy of the day. But I was playing around with your tool. It's not. I think your main tool is the Stat Muse, right? Is that kind of your main day job?
Yeah. These days, that's my day job. So I was there. We started like 10 years ago. I was there for like 5 years and gone for 3, and I've been back for a couple.
Oh wow.
So yeah, it's my day job right now.
So just to describe this to people, it's like well, I was looking at more on the sports stats end, but it seems like it does other things as well potentially. But and it was, so I didn't realize it was that old though, because I just thought it was like an AI thing. I'm like just typing in like who had the most home runs in baseball before 1945, and it's like Babe Ruth, and like so I just figured it's like it's a cool little, they're doing some AI stuff and turning it into queries, but you were doing that before ChatGPT.
Yeah, no, we do it like the very brute force way. I mean,
Right,
like it's
just
not
parsing it out.
It's not LLMs. Yeah.
You just get a
So-
Slack message and you got to go look up the
Yeah,
stats.
There's a human.
Shoot, Babe Ruth, go look it up.
That AWS, what was that? AWS Mechanical Turk, it's just a
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really
Yeah,
cool.
no, we
It does a great job.
Yeah, no, we that's how we start. We started just like as it's just giving you like tables and charts for sports questions. Now we do have a finance thing. Sports is much bigger for us. Like we really hit kind of a nerve in the NBA community. Now I think we have all the North American sports. We just did European soccer. So I don't know if you know anything
Ooh.
about Premier League, but we've got Premier League now. So that's
Wow,
great.
that's
That's
big.
that news. Yeah.
I'm more of a, I was more of a La Liga guy when Messi was there, but now I just watch Messi in the US, so I don't have to even worry about the Europeans anymore. Fully in America.
You know what's wild? Okay, so the weird thing about Miami is, I don't know, I can't really explain why this is the case, but celebrities just like randomly end up in like very normal situations right next to you. Like, did you see all those pictures of him at the grocery store?
I did.
Oh, I actually didn't see that. Wow.
And I have to like really stress this. This is like the most normal grocery store on the planet. It's like where you would go with your family, and like you
Right.
turn an aisle, and Messi's just there like looking at jams.
Wow.
Like it's such a weird situation. And the picture I posted the other day of Jeff Bezos just walking around my neighborhood.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, I
that
did
was
see that.
wild.
It's really
It's
odd.
wild. That is the cool thing about cities. It's like you got that, there's just people walking in New York. It's similar. It's like, there's just people walking around, and it's like, there they are, and they're in
Yeah.
the restaurant with you or whatever.
I think in New York, it's so much easier to be anonymous. I feel like you would just never notice someone that's around because there's so many people.
That's true, yeah.
Although I guess I did see a good amount. I think the one that jumps to mind is I was at a restaurant and the table right next to me was Michael Cera the whole time, and he did
What?
not look good. He just did not look good. Like he looked kind of bummed out and like just not healthy, and I don't know. It just was a sad vibe.
There was this place on West Broadway we used to go that was like this really awesome restaurant, just like a little hole in the wall type place. And there was like, what's that? I think it's like Josh Hartnett or something like that is the guy's name. This is like 20 years ago or something. And yeah, he was just in there like eating. I think I saw him in there twice. And just like, oh yeah, it's just like his spot. He just goes there and sits at the bar and eats, and like nobody messes with him. Nobody went up to him and was like, give me your autograph or whatever. Just like, he's just in his
people would be
local.
alone.
Yeah.
We
That's crazy.
also saw Louis C.K. like peak cancellation time too, and he also did not look very good. It was at
Yeah, I bet not.
it was also at an ice cream store, so it just looked like he just looked extra depressed because he's just there like getting ice
Oh
cream,
man,
and he's
yeah,
like
eating
covered
ice
up.
cream alone.
Drowning
It's just
in
not a good
sorrows.
look. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only famous person I've run into in Dallas is Troy Aikman. He was like I was at a restaurant once and he was sitting like one table over. And I was like, I think I know that guy. And I didn't. It was Troy Aikman.
Do you ever see anyone famous in the Ozarks, Adam? Do you ever see Brad Pitt?
Brad Pitt all the time. Yeah. No, actually, his parents still live here, so his brother has like an electronics store or something here,
Oh wow.
and his brother looks exactly like him, like him,
But not
Brad
enough,
Pitt.
right? Because if he looked enough
Not-
like him,
I mean,
Yeah.
pretty
If he
similar.
looked enough like him, he wouldn't own an electronics store.
It's fair. That's fair.
He's
No,
got
I
his
never see
own
any famous people.
path.
There's no famous people here.
oh, okay.
Gosh.
Is that why people live in cities? Like that's it? It's the celebrities? Because I just
That's
can't
not it,
put it
yeah.
together in my mind. Like people always say like, oh, you've got everything. Everything is here. I feel like if you have like 100,000 people, you've got accommodations for everything you'd want to do. You have like a zoo and like
zoo.
what Target? I mean, I don't know.
That's
Wow.
number one on your
What
list.
do you
Zoo.
need beyond it? Like
Target
I don't
is the
understand.
peak.
Zoo wouldn't
That's
have
so
even
funny.
made my list if I'm being honest. Yeah.
A
I like
bowling
it.
alley. I don't know. What do you guys
Also
have
not
that
on
we
the
don't
list.
have? I don't understand. I'm outing
that's
myself
how
as the
you're
hillbilly that I am.
you're living such a different life that you don't even understand what you don't have. That's how far
I will.
removed it is.
Yeah,
I
you're way
will
off the
say,
grid.
saying zoo and bowling alley that does betray a little bit of the different
Yeah.
life you're living.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Well-
not using any of that stuff anyway. Like, I don't leave my house, and I wouldn't if I lived in a city. But like, I just don't understand. Like, what are the things? Like Broadway, is that it? It's like you can go to Broadway shows in New York. It's like, what is the thing you guys have?
too far
besides
the
so
other
many people?
direction.
The
Too
Statue
far.
of Liberty.
Adam just lives on the internet. That's what the vibe I'm getting, right? He's like, you're just
Don't
the
we all,
internet
though?
native. Yeah, I
Exactly.
know.
We do, yeah.
Increasingly so.
I
How do you
will
guys
say,
get out? How do you get off the internet? This is an interesting question I have for people. Do you get off the internet or no? Is there anything explicitly you do to get off the internet, or are you just too locked in right now?
I'm the last person. Because you guys at least have children, so
Yeah.
I imagine
Or
that
forced?
that's kind of important to like pay attention to. I imagine.
I guess I imagine a day where I spend like next to no time on the internet, but I'm not there right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Adam, you
So hard.
fight? Don't you do like judo, taekwondo, something like
Oh
that?
yeah,
Okay.
Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, there you
Okay.
go.
You named 2 martial arts without saying jiu-jitsu. That's
Yeah,
impressive.
without saying the one. That was pretty good. I do know you're vegan. I got that part down.
I'm a
I just couldn't-
vegan.
I couldn't
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
the
yeah.
martial art that you do.
Jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I did some
It was
yesterday. My
close.
face is a little beat up. Like Mondays after open mat, I'm like all black-eyed and everything. It's a good time.
Here's an interesting tidbit for you, Ian. Adam, in his infinite wisdom, was like, I don't need health insurance. Why would I ever have health insurance? And then he's
Okay.
like, I'm gonna get into jujitsu, and then also separately for some reason go to the hospital like 4 times.
Yeah,
So-
literally. I dropped my health
Oh,
insurance
man.
and I went to the hospital twice and started jiu-jitsu. So
Yeah.
not a good recipe.
Are
I've
you
still
back on
paid
the-
less. I've still saved money, just to be clear. Like
That's
on
the
premiums,
sad part.
still
Man,
saved
I
a lot.
don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. This is
That's
not a
not great.
philosophy I subscribe to. This is
No,
not
it's so
mostly
risky.
technically approved. This is definitely that's a bad
Way
move.
too
You gotta get
risky.
the health insurance. At least just get the one that's like covers nothing except
done
for
it.
like you're literally hit by a
yeah,
bus.
it's
That's
so
the one I
expensive,
have.
man.
That's
Because
the one
it's
I
not
have
about
though.
it's not about the money for me. I've done it for 15 years. It's the principle. I just
You can
don't want to
stick it
buy
to the
into the
man.
system. The
Mhm.
system's just so bad and so dumb that I
Yeah,
just
but-
don't want to be a part of it.
Like, what
That's
if
it.
you lose your house and all your stuff because like you
I
can't
mean,
afford
I
it when you get hit by a bus? Like that's
don't know. Don't they say
there's
you
a lot
don't
of
like have to
risk.
pay medical bills or something? I don't know. You don't even have to pay them.
I don't
It's
know.
like, that's what-
I think you're
That's
thinking the
what I do.
opposite. I think they're the only ones you can't
Okay.
discharge. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk there.
Well, my friend's aunt or something worked at a hospital billing thing, whatever.
Mhm.
And I don't know if this is true. It definitely sounds extremely made up, but he's like, the way they work, if you literally just send them $1 every time they ask you to pay, they're like some like counter resets. And then you can keep this going on for
Oh.
years and they eventually just give up. So
I can
That's
see that.
incredible. You
There
know
is
what we do with
definitely-
every medical bill we get? Literally everyone that's over, $100, we call and say, "What if I give you less?"
Yeah,
Yeah,
What if I,
exactly.
right now?
They'll
I was
take
just
it.
gonna,
on
I
the
was just gonna
phone,
say that.
on
Yeah,
the
they
phone
always do
right
it.
now.
Yeah,
I'll give you
100% of the time.
70%. You can run my credit card, and they're always like, "Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
It's great. It's
That-
great."
that
Buy
does
a
work.
used car with
Yeah,
cash.
you just
Like,
ignore
got
the
cash
first
in my
letter.
hand right now.
You get the
Yeah.
second letter, and then you call, and you're like, "Oh wow, shoot, oh geez, goodness, what if I give you 70%?" And they're like, "Oh, that's awesome. Let's do it."
yeah.
It's great.
That definitely works. That you should. Everybody should do that for sure. Like, because that's just the automatic. Even if you're like we have the high deductible. Because I don't want to pay whatever. I have the money to pay for like a couple $1,000s here and there, but I don't want to have to pay $1 million if I get
Yeah,
really
sure.
sick or whatever. So yeah, when we get bills like that, it's like, yeah, you just call them and be like, I'm not paying this. I'm paying out of pocket for this. Like, what are you gonna do for me? And then it's always at least like 25% off or more. And that's
Yep.
just with like the bare minimum fighting back, just calling. I'm sure you can
Yes.
get 50% off if you like really stuck to your guns and
Mm-hmm.
I've had an even
harass them.
crazier situation than that. So Liz had to get her gallbladder out, and they quoted us like over $100,000 or something.
Wow.
And we were just like, And then we went and looked up like all this stuff, and it ended up being pushed down to like around 10,000.
Oh
And
wow!
they technically keep trying to ask us for more, and we just haven't responded
Just
in like
say no.
years, and nothing happened. So
Isn't there something, and like I did not do all this research because I was dropping health insurance, but isn't there something where like they can't hit your credit or something with medical bills? There's something like if you don't pay, it's a different system or something.
It
I
could
don't know.
be. Yeah, it could be something like that.
they usually just send to
Potentially.
collections, and then collections tries to bother you, and they eventually give up. That's been my experience.
I
at
can see
least.
that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Are you
American
working
Health
on
Code
health
just
insurance too,
none of this
Dax?
is financial advice, by the way.
No,
Nobody
right.
listen to this, please.
Oh boy, yeah, this is a rough one here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always had the health insurance. I like the health insurance. It's a write-off,
I
sort
like
of,
the health insurance.
sort of a write-off.
You know,
Good
Ian, we're on
stuff.
the same page.
There you go.
Yeah, we have
There you go.
our little disagreements here and there, but I
We're on
like
this
I
one.
like the health insurance too.
There you
I gotta
go.
admit.
There you go.
I
Yeah.
like that.
Good stuff. Oh man. All right. Let's get into some meat here. We've gone on the mostly a lot. Let's jump over to the technical. Yeah. So you guys are perfect for this because I feel like you guys are on the JavaScripty end of the world. We're on the Laravel end of the world. I mean, I know nothing about JavaScript. I know Next.js, all this stuff. I spent a couple months last year learning React just so I have some idea what's going on. It was like maybe I was going to use it for some projects or whatever. So I have a little idea of like pure React, but none of the like full stack, how it runs on the server, any of that stuff. And obviously this week we've been coming out with you guys are talking to Taylor tomorrow, is my understanding, right? On your podcast. So everybody check that out. We'll link that up. But yeah, so Taylor had his little post, which I thought was from the Laravel perspective made a lot of sense about how full stack Laravel is and how it lets you build real applications quickly and reliably. And it's kind of like batteries included, has everything you need. And versus kind of the JavaScript meaning of full stack, which at least to my understanding and my limited experience is more kind of like all the parts are sort of out there to do it, but you really have to put it all together yourself. And there's not a unifying, opinionated, overarching sort of framework or just even standards around that. So that's my summary. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to kind of that summary of the situation.
No, I think that makes sense. Yeah, it's funny because in this situation, yeah, me and Adam represent the JavaScript side, but I think the interesting detail here is we're both. I mean, me and Adam are both full stack people, but that term is obviously very, very loose.
Proper full stack.
Both of us go very deep on the backend side, like deeper than what most people would say full stack is, because we do a lot of infrastructure work.
Right.
The question to ask is, why are either of us even doing JavaScript in the first place? It's not like it's the only thing we've ever done. I'm actually like somewhat newer to it. Like I only started doing JavaScript in the backend in the last 3 years. Had a bunch of different stacks before then. I think Adam's the same as well. The question is like, why are we even here? Neither of us like the language. Like we're not here because we're like, oh, we love JavaScript. No backend and JavaScript engineers really like that. SST also primarily serve, even though we talk about front end stuff a lot, our audience is primarily backend JavaScript engineers. So the only reason any of us are doing JavaScript is because at some point, a lot of us bought into the idea of picking a cloud and utilizing it maximally. So prior to this, I was building things in Elixir, prior to that in Go, prior to that in C#. Those systems are more around like creating a nice little bubble for you to live in, and then you can deploy that bubble anywhere, whether it's AWS onto your own servers, whatever. There's like little adapters for things, so you can kind of use some of the features that are in each of these providers. But at some point, a bunch of us had the notion of, if you really commit yourself to a certain cloud, they can really handle a lot of things for you, way more than you can with like a more agnostic framework. And that's just a fundamental trade-off. And it's fine if that doesn't click for you, but it has clicked for a bunch of people. Unfortunately, the best language to program these things is JavaScript. That's like what these clouds were built around. And if you look at some of the more newer ones like Cloudflare, I know Ian's a big Cloudflare fan.
Love Cloudflare.
They're like even way more oriented around JavaScript. So we
I don't
only
like that
bother.
part.
So we only bother using JavaScript because it gives us access to all these other things. If you went and built us equivalent to Laravel or Elixir Phoenix or Rails, we just wouldn't bother using JavaScript. We just go back to one of these other systems that are more mature with languages that we prefer. That's at least my take. Like it's the only reason why I'm in JavaScript land. Like I don't have any love for the language or anything. It's just it gives me access to these things that other ecosystems just don't build that way.
Yeah. Well, a lot of those cloud elements are accessible from even a a back-end oriented framework, right? Like, I mean, it kind of removes the requirement, I guess, for some of the like they've kind of glued it together with JavaScript, where like it's more accessible from JavaScript, but like all the AWS stuff you can use from a Laravel app too, or the vast majority of it, right? There are these like things like Cloudflare workers, which super annoyingly, like, yeah, you have to write JavaScript or whatever, but all the like whatever S3 or RDS or whatever, all the big stuff is accessible from anything really. So I don't know.
Yeah,
But I
it's
feel
like,
I feel like when like the stuff that Dax is talking about is less like the RDS and more like the step functions and stuff like that, where it helps
Right,
you
like
orchestrate a
Lambda
back
and-
end. Yeah, it helps you orchestrate what you would maybe traditionally do in like a monolithic backend in Laravel or
Mhm.
Rails, and instead you break it up into these AWS or otherwise primitives that then kind of form up your backend out of these little pieces instead of
parts.
a monolith. Yeah.
yeah, and it's funny you bring up step functions because I hate step functions. And I would say on this spectrum of like going really hard with like doing AWS native stuff, I actually don't go that far. There's just a spectrum, right? Like I think that Ian mentioned, like you can deploy a Laravel app that are using the adapters that are for AWS flavor of things, like for events, for queues, for all those things. Then there's like a step further where you're like, I don't like imagine that you didn't care about letting me move this Laravel app to a different cloud. You would use it a little bit more intensely and use more of it and give you like functionality to like spin that stuff up and down really easily. And that's kind of the zone that I operate in, and it's kind of the zone that Adam operates in as well. And I would say the majority of like modern backend JavaScript that's like starting up today, it fits in that category. If you're not doing that, I don't really know why you'd be running JavaScript as your backend thing. Like it just, I haven't really seen it, and like I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me.
What's your theory? I have this theory,
All right.
and I
Here
don't
we
know
go.
anything.
Yeah.
This is totally.
This is
there's
it,
no
baby.
facts. There's no
Yeah.
facts here at all.
We don't need them.
We don't need them. But like, how much is like JavaScript kind of taking over the mindset of a lot of programming and things like that? Is, I guess I feel like a lot of it from the outside world feels very VC money backed. And how are there really a lot of applications in production in the tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars that are running like this? Do you know what I'm saying? Like just deploying for the JavaScript front end and the connectors, and it's actually running $1 billion business. Like I'm curious, like a real, not just $1 billion business of like on paper, but a real like revenue generating $1 billion business. Like I don't know if it's just too early and they're not there, or maybe they're out there and I'm not as aware of them. Obviously, like a lot of big enterprise stuff is not built this way, so it's more newer webby stuff. But I don't know. I'm curious what you guys are aware of out there that's like that.
Yeah, what's funny is there's actually a lot of enterprise usage of this for the same reason I just mentioned. What do enterprises use? They use AWS. What do they try to do a lot of? Like they try to offload a lot of their work to AWS, especially if they're not a tech company. So weirdly, some of the earliest adoption of that stuff is in big enterprise. Like Adam probably knows this better, but like a lot of the AWS heroes and people from that world, they all work at these big enterprise companies, right?
Is that a question to me?
Yeah,
Sorry.
you're
It's like
Adam.
on a different planet.
Yeah. We should have gone over
I
that
thought
at the
it-
beginning.
Yeah.
I thought it was rhetorical. I didn't know you were actually asking me a specific question. Yeah, a lot. I mean, a lot of the heroes do work at like random big companies. I know that because I don't know about these companies. It's like not big names that I've heard of, just like random companies.
So like
I
where
don't-
they
I
maybe
don't know
they
anything
built
about-
out a new system in this more modern style. It's not necessarily running their whole enterprise, right? Because like they have a COBOL app somewhere doing
Yeah,
something, and
exactly.
they have, like, whatever. But it's like we have a new internal app that's doing whatever, something for the HR department or whatever they're doing, and they're going to build it on this stack as like a freestanding.
Yeah, one of the big examples, like when people talk about serverless, like adoption in the enterprise, it's Lego. So Lego had this big transformation where they went from kind of traditional app architecture to this very modern, like event-driven stuff. But I honestly, I know there's like whole pages on AWS's site about like companies that have adopted these modern approaches. I don't remember. Honestly,
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, so on that, there's a lot, and I think we've experienced this because our like SST took a very weird route. Usually, a framework starts low end of the market and then moves to higher end. Weirdly, we got adoption first in the higher end because these companies this is how they were building stuff, so they're more familiar with our approach. And even though our tools were rough, like they had expertise in it, so they were the early adopters.
Right.
And we've been working to like bring it down market to like
that's interesting.
The people that are building smaller things. But so those are examples on the enterprise side. On like the more like startup-y type thing. I hate bringing this up because I like obsessively bring up Linear, and I'm like so self-conscious every time I bring it up because I think they're just the best app ever built, and their backend is in JavaScript. It's but the point here though is that like my point is like it's kind of irrelevant that's in JavaScript. Like they're just a really talented team, and like they would have just made it great. And it's not like, oh, they use JavaScript, therefore they were successful. You know, it's just like that's kind of like an irrelevant detail. But there are quite a lot of examples in the past, like I would say 5 or so years.
So this whole conversation, I want to make sure, Ian, when you talk about like the VC and the noise, like is most of the noise on Twitter? And if so, I don't even know how much of it's even back in JavaScript. How much of it's just
it's all front
end JavaScript world.
There's a lot more exposure, I think, to front end JavaScript, right? Like everybody works at Vercel. And
everybody works at Vercel.
Who knows what they're all doing there, right? Like nobody knows.
No idea.
Like and that kind of thing. Yeah. I do think
we can't ignore the fact, like, you know, they've spent 300 million or so. I think they've raised another 250. Like you spend that kind of money in a space, like it's going to have some amount of impact. So you can't say it, like no one can say, oh, it's zero. And it was like all natural. And I do think a lot of the noise specifically comes from them, especially with serverless. Sorry?
They've raised $550 million.
Yeah, something like that.
That buys some
of
Twitter audience or Twitter banter.
There's just impact in the world. Like if you spend that much capital on anything, you're going to be able to build something out of it, right? Unless you're completely stupid.
Well, the linear thing's kind of interesting to me because it sort of represents a little bit what we're kind of talking about to some degree. Because like they had an issue. Like I experimented with using linear. We didn't fully move over to it, but I was on there, whatever. I get their emails and whatnot. And it's like they had some kind of data issue where they lost like 12 hours of data. And like, or 12 or 24. And I don't know, it was weird to me. Like they didn't have point in time database recovery and like maybe 5 minutes of data, but to lose 24 hours of data is a lot of data. And like, so to me, it's like one of these, like, they're not a back-end thinking company, right? So it's like, yeah, we just shoved the data up there. Who knows what those default settings were, if it was configured correctly or whatever. I mean, maybe they just lost it through some other means. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
so I don't think
the details there, but it was, the explanation was kind of weird.
I think they did recover it, but that situation was actually not from like their database messing up. So the reason why Linear is so impressive compared to other apps is because they sync all the data to the front end. And it's like a crazy complex. It's basically like treating every browser as like another replica in your database. So that is like really sophisticated distributed systems problems. Right. And they had some kind of weird issue with that. So I think there were some writes that just stuck locally and like didn't make it up or something, or there was like massively delayed. And obviously remerging after 12 hours causes a bunch of conflicts.
Gotcha.
Like, yeah. So I think that was that situation, but I do agree with your point that I think the root of all this is, again, to me, it just feels so made up. It's like there's a lot of people that start with something like Next.js and they're like, this is my whole application. It's just a Next.js application. Right. And I think the impression externally is like, that's what the JavaScript community is. But literally nobody does this. No like serious company does this. Right. The reason we focus a lot on helping companies deploy Next.js is because 90% of their system is this like AWS thing, sometimes in JavaScript, sometimes not. They're using Next.js on the front end, and it's a pain in the ass to deploy alongside the rest of their stuff. So they come to us and we help them figure that out. This is not their whole app. Like they do not care about Next.js. They're not like, oh, like we have to like have all the latest features. It needs to be deployed on Vercel. Like they just don't care. It's just
the React burden. Right? Like it's replaced create React app as like the default way to create a React app.
Yeah. And there are people like trying to use it for like everything. Like my whole system is in Next.js, but like you can't even, it has no solution for doing any asynchronous work. Like that's just a non-starter for like anything.
A
Ship
real
Week's
application.
coming.
Yeah.
Ship Week's coming, Dax. They could
Oh,
have
yeah.
it this year. It could be this year.
That's true. That is true.
So to
When
me,
is their
it's like,
ship week?
I think it's
Thursday,
this month.
I think.
No,
Oh,
Dax
Dax
is
is
going to go
on it.
crazy on ship week.
Oh, but here's the thing, though. I am going on vacation to Europe on
Sorry, Liz.
Monday.
Sorry, Liz.
Oh,
They shipped
nice.
something. Got a tweet, babe.
You know, she literally told me she was like, "No funny with Vercel on vacation."
Well, I don't know if she knows you very well. I know y'all are married or whatever, but
Can't resist. How long are you going for? How long are you going for? That's
I'm going to Lisbon and Spain for a week, and
Okay.
I'll be here for their ship week announcement, which I am curious about. But
maybe he could hold out a week. I mean, I could see him.
There's no way he can
It's
hold
not
out
like
a
four.
week.
It's not like 4 weeks. It's
No,
like 1
here-
week.
Listen, Adam's not going to understand this reference, but this is red meat for Dax. Ship week is red meat. Like, he's got to pounce on it.
No. My whole attitude to this is, I have, like you like start a fire, like I've like gotten the smoke going, and I think other people will. I can delegate this one. I'm
I
hoping
can delegate.
to the people.
Oh, incredible.
The
Okay,
disciples.
so what did you think, Dax and Adam? What did you think about the discourse on Twitter around the Laravel JavaScript? What's a framework? What's backend? Michael Jackson, isn't that his name? That's definitely his name.
Michael Jackson remix,
weighed in,
the most
right,
ungoogleable thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael Jackson React Router version 7. So
Oh,
he
geez.
weighed in, Ryan Florence weighed in, Taylor weighed in, everybody weighed in. Y'all are having them on the show tomorrow. So what are your thoughts as you're prepping for this big show? What were your thoughts watching all this go down?
Prepping.
They're prepping right now. They're on
Yeah,
here
this is
prepping.
your prep. Yeah, I'm being
Dax is
generous.
allergic. Dax is allergic to anything prepping or process or
Perfect.
writing things down.
I know, right? I think Adam had some feelings. I saw him post.
I mean, I just feel like, so when people say like the JavaScript world, we don't have this kind of like full stack, fullest
Mhm.
stack, fuller stack. I don't know. We don't have that, but we do. Like there are a few of them. People have tried. They just weren't the most popular. Like they didn't take over
Mhm.
in the way that maybe is there an equivalent in PHP world where there's like little like do it yourself, grab your own pieces frameworks? Like
Yep,
what
some
Yeah,
people
became
have
very
tried that.
popular? Yeah.
That became very popular. No, but some people have tried like, yeah, we give you ultimate freedom to pick your favorite packages and tie them together loosely, and everybody's
Yeah.
like, it seems hard.
So my view is just that it's like random. That like in the
Yeah.
JavaScript world, for whatever reason, the ones that won out and became popular were these kind of like modular systems, and the ones in PHP and Rails. I think what Dax said, I mean, all that stuff about infrastructure and cloud in the last few years, that makes sense. I get it. I guess I feel like it's all kind of like just random. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there's like, it's people really understate how much things come down to a specific time, a specific person, things lining up in a certain way. So Jay, CEO of our company, he described this thing. I forgot what coach it was, but he was talking about his team over the years, and it's the same group of people on the team, but it's like a different team every year. It's like, this is the 2022 team, this is a 2023 team. Even though it looks the same, it's like you treat it like a different era. So I think there is a lot of that going on with things that are like as incredible as some of this stuff, like to get this big, to have this level of influence. There's so much variability and randomness and stuff. There's so many things, right? Like JavaScript, I would say, had a big reset with TypeScript. Like it came out, it got to a point where it sort of became the default, but then it took even longer than that for people to like understand it well enough to actually build the right level of tooling. And that's kind of what's happening now. You start to see libraries come out that are like correctly using it. And also, it's like we're at TypeScript v5 now. I wouldn't even say all this was possible till like around v4. So there's just been a lot of change and variation. I'm convinced though that there's been like Adam said, there's been a bunch of attempts trying to do the let's have a Rails for JavaScript thing. And there's been like 1 or 2 projects that are in that category. It just doesn't work. Like I said, if you pitch me that and I look at it, I just want to go use a different language. That's kind of where immediately go to.
Yeah.
In terms of the discourse, it's funny because I think when you're building a framework, you're in this category of, you're in a very small pool of people, right? Like there's like very few people that really build and do an open source thing. And you ultimately, it's this weird thing where you like are so nerdy about this stuff. So you're like really into other things, even though if it's not for you. Like I'm sure like Taylor is like super interested in what like Remix and Next is doing, just from like an academic point of view, because, you know, it helps him reorient himself and vice versa. Like everyone's like studying each other, and there's a lot of like just fundamental respect in that way, even though your approaches might be completely opposite at the end of the day. So that's kind of what I saw in the initial discourse. Like that, when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's what it is. Like I studied Laravel a lot, like for our work. Like we look at everything from the way they do their docs to what concepts to how big their scope is. And I'm sure everyone is doing that. So I found that initial post interesting from that perspective. I think as usual on Twitter, it was like there's like an initial interaction that is fine, and then like it devolves into a really stupid place after, which is, I think, it's just how everything goes.
That's how it is. Yeah.
I feel like there's almost no value in like the general discourse after.
Going too far down the thread, there's no point.
No, you don't want to go
the
there.
first couple. I do think the history is super interesting and definitely something people forget, because I do feel like PHP in general, of course, is definitely my background, is like, and even with Taylor, it's like rooted in a lot of like solo founder with no money at all. And so it's like, you know, Taylor worked at Userscape, my company, and then when in early Laravel days, and then he built Forge by himself, and, you know, went off and did that. And it's like, what are the tools that are going to let one person with no money go and build a product that makes millions of dollars? And so that's like the mindset. Like you don't want to connect 1,000 things and have all this complexity. You just want to be like, I use this one tool, it does everything I need, and now I move forward. Whereas like the modern sort of JavaScript ecosystem seems like it's come from a different place, right? Like there is money, and there's enterprises, and there's VC money, and it's like, okay, like we can have specialists even in different roles and all that kind of stuff. It's not so focused on what one person can achieve with it as like its legacy. Obviously now, I think on both stacks, like one person can do a lot, or huge teams can do a lot, because they've evolved to that. But the kind of core sort of baked in really deep mindset is maybe a little bit different there about what they're trying to achieve and like how they're trying to achieve that from like a business perspective.
And JavaScript is just messier. Like there's just like it's a messier history, it's a more accidental history. The hottest take I have with this is I don't think good engineers entered the JavaScript space until the last like 3 or 4 years. And I think previously it was stewarded by people that were just a lot less competent.
That is a hot take. I like that. That's red hot.
And I think it's because of what I described. Like prior to, like, why would anyone good on the back end get into JavaScript from the back end? Like I'm sure there were individual examples, but broadly there was like almost no reason to. I think more recently it's attracted a much better caliber of like, you know, people that could serve as leaders. And things are getting better, but there is just a crazy messy history with it. So yeah, like I said, I wouldn't like choose it if it wasn't for a bunch of other reasons.
But that's like always the interesting thing about all these languages. Like the winner, like the back end, the biggest language is still PHP, like just in terms of raw number of like lines of code out there, and like JavaScript on the front end. It's like these languages that everybody's like, oh, they're terrible in all different ways. They're terrible, right? Like everybody beats on PHP and JavaScript forever. But these are the biggest languages because they, you know, for whatever reason, some of that ugliness is useful in different ways, or it allows more people to access it, or whatever the reason, they've actually, you know, kind of survived and thrived, even though there are other languages that are technically superior and things.
Can we hear Aaron? Aaron's working on a video, right? Can we get a sneak peek of this video?
I am working on a video. Yeah, so I did a quick response video that I already published that I was just so freaking proud. I was just so pumped that I turned it around.
I couldn't believe how fast that was. I was like, what the hell? Was it the same day?
Oh my
Same day. I called Steve in the morning and I was like, oh dude, this is gonna be something. We have to do a video. And he was like, great, do it. And so I, you know, recorded it and sent it over to him, and he edited it, and we got it up the same day. Super proud of that. So now I'm working on a new video. Hopefully it'll be out, today or tomorrow to capitalize. And it's going to be, there's a little sneak peek for everybody. It's going to be called Laravel versus React. And then
I like
so it's
it.
going to be great already. You know,
Just
it's
the
gonna be
name is great.
Yeah,
We're good. Work's done.
And then it's kind of a bait and switch, and it's Laravel versus React is a ridiculous question. You should use them both together if you want. React is very good on the front end. Laravel is very good on the back end. So it's going to be kind of an overview of like how you can use Laravel with React or Vue or even Next.js or Livewire. And it's a whole, like, I'm going to have, charts and graphs drawn by Steve that show like where Laravel starts and stops and where React starts and stops in terms of like front end, back end network. And hopefully, like, my goal, and I think this is Laravel's goal as well, is not to convince people not to use React. It's to convince people that like there are back-end solutions that are really thought through and powerful, and you should pair that with your favorite front-end solution. I think the thing that I always see is like I think Dax mentioned it, where people like claim Next.js is going to be their whole stack, and then it's like everyone else is like, y'all, how does that can't work at all? So hopefully the video will convince some people that like Next is great, React is great, Vue is great. You should pair it with something on the back end that is powerful. That is the hope. So we'll see if we can pull it off.
Nice.
I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think,
Good.
and again, like just from the systems that we see, that just is how even people doing full stack JavaScript, they build a separate system for their backend that is a lot more capable than what this front end framework can do. So yeah, it's just this weird thing. Like it's a lot of, it feels like it's everywhere, but at the same time, when I go look at like our user base, like it's like nobody's actually doing that. So yeah, it's like this.
Once again, the discourse and the reality are quite different.
Yeah,
if you can believe that.
Yeah.
All right, I want to cover two other things. We've got Adam's working on a course, and we've got the boys started a coffee company. So we got to cover that. Also, we got to give a plug.
I tried to buy this coffee. Just how you buy it is totally insane. I love it.
Totally
it's like,
insane.
great.
We got to give a plug for their podcast, Tomorrow FM, or How About Tomorrow? I'll just give a quick rundown. The podcast is basically Adam says something like, "Man, Dax, have you ever really thought that we're all just gonna like die one day?" And Dax is like, Dax will say something like, "I've actually thought about this a lot, and I actually used to work with a guy, and so here's the reality of the situation." So if you like that vibe,
such a good
that is
great
their
summary.
podcast. Yeah,
I like to think of our
man.
podcast. This is mostly technical. I like to think ours is like barely technical.
Barely
Sometimes
technical, yes.
we say some things that are technical. It happens.
yes. And
By
if you're not very online, you'll get like 40% of it. Actually, Adam plays the foil a lot. He's like, "Hey Dax, I saw you tweeted this. What do you mean? Like, what does this mean? What are you talking about?" And
half
so
of
it
it.
kind of brings the audience along. So
And then once a
where do we
month, I'll
wanna
do an
go?
hour
Let's-
rant on Vercel, and then
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
yeah.
They
Should we
haven't
go
tried to buy
let's
you
do
off
coffee.
yet?
Let's start coffee, man. Do we want to go there?
Yeah. How did this
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
come about? This is fascinating. I love anything real world. It's like physical world. Can we get a box and shove some
Mhm.
product in it
fun.
and ship it out? Like that's
Is
so
it Adam?
great.
Is it fun?
It's
Yeah,
also
is
not fun.
logistics fun?
It's
course.
fun, but it's also not fun.
The
in lots of
dream
ways.
is way better than the reality, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like the dream of it is amazing though.
Yeah.
Okay, so back up a little bit, and somebody give us a story of how these 5 friends came together and how you decided to ship coffee from the terminal.
Go ahead, Dax.
Yeah, so this is a while ago. Prime tweeted the Primeagen, for those of you that are online. He tweeted something like, "Oh, does anyone know a coffee company? Like, I'd love to do like some kind of coffee sponsorship." And I have 2 friends that own coffee roasters, so I messaged him, and it was kind of like we weren't like, "Oh, let's do this for sure." We were kind of like casually talking about it over the course of months. Then eventually we are like, "Okay, let's do this for real." So we got together, me, Adam, Prime, and TJ. All of us know each other from streaming on Twitch. And we were like, "Okay, let's like do it. Let's like build a coffee business." And then a week into it, Prime messages being like, "Hey, so Cometeer just messaged me and they want to do a sponsorship. So sorry, like Can't do
Like,
it.
remember that time I
Whoops.
asked if there were any coffee companies that wanted to sponsor me? Well, there are.
There are.
Shockingly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were like, bummer, but that is like a good opportunity. He should do it. So we were like, okay, we kind of forgot about it. Then a few months later, he was just being like, the sponsorship sucks. Let's do this for real. He just wasn't making like any money.
Right.
Commentator just get taken strays right here.
I mean, their product is
On
great.
mostly
I think.
technical.
I mean, I don't drink coffee at all. That's another funny detail here.
That's another fun one.
Crazy.
Yeah,
I
there
think
you
it's
go.
disgusting. I hate
Oh,
coffee.
wow.
I'll eat coffee ice cream. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
delicious, but
That's the wildest part to me is that you eat
That's a
coffee
hot
ice cream.
take. Yeah.
it's great. So then we got together again. And we're thinking it. So the idea was I guess the premise is one, influencers like Prime, people that are trying to do content full time, need a way to make money. They need to sell something. The people lining up to pay them are usually mediocre developer tool companies that just don't have. I'm just gonna be real, right? It's like it's not like
no, this is great. This is great.
And it's like, yeah, you can take those deals, but then now people are following you because they find you credible, and now you're like, it's a whole conflict of interest thing. If there's not a proper alignment, if you find alignment, that's great, but it's obviously hard to find that. But selling something like coffee, that has nothing to do with anything. No one's going to be upset at that. Well, no, people were upset at that, but generally people are not going to be upset at that.
Right.
And then the second thing was the developer audience is big enough that you could probably launch any kind of thing where if you can reach millions of them, that's not like a sizable audience. And it doesn't matter that you're not like competing as a coffee company. You're like in this other bubble. So like, okay, let's just do stuff that developers would find funny, entertaining, etc. We came across, so I use this library for SST that helps us build like really fancy terminal based UIs in Go. And then, so we're like, let's make a CLI that people can download and install, and then they can, buy coffee through this like little terminal app. And then we found out the same company builds another library that you just mount that same UI over SSH. So then it's totally seamless. You don't have to download or install anything. You just SSH into a server and you get that exact same UI. And once we came across that, it was like, oh, we have to do it. This is obviously the way we have to do it. And initially we were like, oh yeah, but we'll probably also have a website, but it's funnier just to double down on the bit and just say, if you can't figure this out, we don't want your money, So.
It's a good bit. I will. It's
especially
crazy.
for the early days. Yeah.
From like a CTA or conversion perspective, it's insane, but it's a good bit.
It's like super high friction, so you'd think it was
such
the opposite of what you want to do.
Actively
It's incredibly scary. I'm like, Aaron, is this thing gonna hack me? Are we sure? I'm just running this command in the terminal. Do they just have Dax is just going through all my financials now, and he's just like, this is great. I don't know. It's a little scary. But then there was no coffee for sale when I went in there. So apparently your first, I don't know if it was a first run or if I was too early, but.
Yeah. So for the first thing, we did it in a more ad hoc way. So we went with one of my roaster friends. We picked the coffee and they literally shipped 5 sacks to it. Adam was here at my house when it got delivered, and it is a giant truck.
Pallet, just giant bags of coffee beans.
Great.
Yeah. And I think all of our reaction, because it was getting slowly lowered down, and we were looking at it and we were just like, that's a lot of coffee.
What the hell have we done?
Yeah. So we bagged all those first bags. We did the whole thing, shipped it all.
Out.
Dax did all the shipping. Yeah, weighed it out, sealed them. Not the best.
Liz did most of the boxing, just to give her credit. She boxed a lot of the orders.
That's the worst. I did stickers once for Laravel 8-10 years ago, and it was just such an incredible nightmare. And I'm shipping them all over the world, and it's coming back to me 3 months later undeliverable from Guatemala. And I'm like, what? These people don't even know how to put their own address in. The incredible number of people don't know how to do their own address. And the whole thing was just a disaster. I was like, all right, I've never want to ship anything ever again. So you guys got that done is quite impressive.
Yeah. So that was an initial thing, is to try out the concept and see if really I think with all these little things, it comes down to motivation. We knew that if we did a smaller thing and it went really well, we'd be really motivated to go to the next step, and that it worked out, and we're all really excited. So now we have a much more professional setup with my other friend who has they're going to handle a lot of the logistics for us and things like that. But what we're excited to kind of get it up and running, because then just selling coffee through terminal, like that's, and just having it all fulfilled and stuff, that's like the bare bones. But there's just so many funny things we can do with this concept. Like we had this idea of like popping up a random leak code challenge while you're checking out, and if you solve it, you get like, you know, percentage off. There's just like
there's like more friction to
more friction. Yeah.
I'm not an expert, but we might need to talk about some of this.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
As long as you get subscriptions in there, it's fine. Because I only have to
we'll
go
have
through it
subscriptions in
once,
there.
and it's
Yeah.
fine. You know, like,
Yeah.
and I just get my coffee every month or week or whatever I
Yeah.
want. And it's all
So
good.
it's just an outlet for like funny jokes and like little things like that. We're gonna have a monthly box where we have a new bag design and blend every month with just like some joke for the month. So
I love it. I mean, people love coffee. People, I mean, selling addictive
don't, but
substances. There's not many better
great.
businesses than that, right? Like that's like really top tier business. And yeah, I don't drink. I used to be a big coffee drinker, and I do love the taste, but I haven't drank it in like 10 years because it hurts my stomach and keeps me awake and whatever. So I've been off it, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can imagine you selling other things too. Like, yeah, once you
Yeah,
get
that's
this
what
down,
that's
like-
kind of that's what I want to hear about. You keep hinting at like the bigger vision, and I think on y'all's last podcast, Adam was like, "Oh, and then I guess I shouldn't say anything." Oh no, I can't say anything. So now that you're here, where no one
It's
is
a safe-
listening,
safe
like what's
place, yeah.
the vision? What's the vision for the future here?
So I think one vision is to partner with a lot of other people trying to do content full time and give them their own blends and really give them really solid cuts. Like a lot of these partnerships that they get for things like this, I'll make like 50 cents a bag or something. We want to give people like a majority of the profit, just so it becomes like a meaningful thing they actually care about promoting and do
yeah.
custom blends for them and do fun stuff with them. So that's just on the coffee side, like just scaling to anyone that has an audience and wants to sell through us. But I know Adam's been looking at some other things as well.
Well, like every time I have some stupid idea, I feel Dax in the back of my head saying like, "Slow down, like just don't get ahead of yourself." It's so easy
He's a
to
no
like
man.
run off with. He's not a no, just like a realist, and like let's take it very slow. I don't do things slow. Like I'm very like sprint. I want to go hard,
jump all in. Yeah,
yeah. So I've like planned out the next 6 months in my mind, like what we could do, and it's all kind of like pump the brakes. Let's get selling coffee. We're not even selling coffee right now, so we gotta get,
I
get back
can't
to
even
doing
buy
that.
it. Like,
Okay, so
my wife loves coffee. I tried to buy her some coffee. I can't buy any coffee.
Yeah,
So.
No.
sold
Well,
out
no,
within
the
24
next-
hours. Just
yeah.
saying.
The next round will be like it won't be like these runs. It'll be continuously available.
On demand.
So I'm not going to tell you guys specifically, but just to give context to what Adam means by when he says he's like, you know, off to the races. He got wholesale quotes for an item that costs like hundreds of dollars per unit.
Perfect. Yep. That is so on brand. I cannot describe how on brand that is.
It's just like the first thing that pops in my head is like a bronze statue of Dax's head, and it's just like glorious, just a glorious beard, a bronze head. It's just like I would buy that. I would buy that and put it right behind me here somewhere. Like
I'm gonna hazard a guess that it's that cool matte black electric kettle. That's my guess.
You're extremely close. It's like basically yes.
I think UGG sold those for a little while, or
It's
maybe
like
they still do.
It's stuff from Fellow, yeah. Yeah. So there's like
they do like
things we can do.
branded. They'll like
See,
print
that's
or
cool.
etch onto your so like terminal
That's
branded
pretty cool.
coffee making gear. You bet. Come
But
on,
I mean, even
let's
if
go.
like sometimes you gotta take that energy, right? And like instead of like going down more products, go down more connections of influencers, right? Like if you had 10 times more people selling just the coffee, that would also be super exciting and obviously profitable and all that
and
stuff.
companies, like there's some brands in the developer space well known that we're talking with, doing stuff, having a blend for their company, their tool or whatever. There's a lot of different angles that we could go.
Conferences even or whatever, one-off things for big conferences.
Well, speaking of conferences,
can we talk about that stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's not confirmed, but I think we're going to show up to Laracon.
Yes.
Are you going?
Breaking news.
Breaking
We'll be
news.
there.
Nice.
Aaron's hosting it, and I'll be there.
Well, I imagine Aaron would go because
It is in Dallas, and I am hosting it. So
Hopefully,
checks out.
I'll be there. Yeah.
It's like me and React Miami. Like I make such a big deal out of it, and I haven't used React in 3 years, but
Yeah.
it's
Right?
convenient,
Just
you know.
I'm already planning my empire where I'm just going to build a website that does the SSHing for people, and I'm just going to like take a little
Oh.
cut. I'm just going to be
Oh.
a middleman. There's no even better than selling addictive substances is being a middleman to addictive substances.
No, but here you joke,
Man.
but part of what we're working on is like the most absurdly well-designed SDKs you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like we're working with the people
love
that
it.
did Stripe's APIs, and they have this new product
Oh my gosh.
that just help people ship SDKs that are as good as Stripe's.
Oh, that's
and
interesting.
so our API, which we're using, is also going to be public. Going to be a public API, so you can build your own
Ooh.
coffee ordering experiences.
In the weirdest places you
Yes!
want. Like
Yes!
put them wherever you want. You can even
Yeah.
put them on a website if you
Oh,
wanted to.
man.
We'll
Yeah,
put them
it
right in
wasn't
my,
React,
right in my help desk product. It'll be
Yeah.
like order more coffee. Like
Yeah, exactly.
right in the
Uh,
B2B app.
My absolute favorite part of this is y'all have been in software for so long, and you've just been looking at those sweet, sweet software margins, and you're like, nah, it's too much.
Nah.
We
Yeah,
gotta sell
ship it.
coffee.
Sell coffee,
We
baby.
gotta sell coffee, man.
But see, every business, right? Every business just comes down to distribution. And so, like,
Yeah.
you guys
That's
are
true.
known. You have friends who have
Yep.
a lot of distribution. You have your own distribution. Like, yeah, once you have distribution, then you just find stuff
whatever.
to sell into it, right? Like,
Yep.
it could be software, but it
Yeah.
could be other things. And so,
It
yeah,
is.
it's great.
It's funny, like knowing all the e-commerce things from just like being in this space for a long time, just being on Twitter. Even you like hear all these things like drip marketing and all this
Mhm.
stuff, like the stuff you're supposed to do, and it like just doesn't matter for us because Prime can like stream for 2 hours and get more impressions than we'd ever get with some email campaign or whatever.
Yep.
It's just a really interesting dynamic where you've got already this very active, engaged audience. We don't really have to think about like marketing or doing that kind of stuff. It just happens kind of
Well,
naturally.
and those things can be the optimizations later, right? Like people are trying to start with that, but really that's your like later optimization because it's like, okay,
Mhm.
once we've like we're
You have no
getting
other
so much
ideas.
initially, then
Yeah.
eventually it's like, oh, we probably should be emailing these people who bought from us before to buy from us again, and like stuff like that.
yeah.
But it doesn't have to
Do
be the
y'all-
first thing. It's like a secondary thing after you're going.
Do any of y'all listen to Nathan Barry's Billionaire Creator podcast or whatever it's called? No.
I don't drink
Okay.
coffee and I don't listen to podcasts, but I
Okay, perfect.
produce both.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the show.
Same,
Yeah.
actually, to be
Um,
honest with you.
He's
Me and
been
Dax,
talking.
we're connected.
Yeah. This is why I'm paired with Ian and Adam is paired with Dax.
It's
Otherwise,
gotta
it's
have
be
the
perfect.
chaos.
contrast.
It's like such
Chaos.
perfect. It's like the
Yes.
exact same situation. It's so
It
weird.
really is. It's
Adam
very
and I are
creepy.
both light mode on this side. Ian and Dax are both dark mode on that side. Okay, focus. This podcast has started talking a lot about how creators already own the distribution and are moving backwards into making brand
Mm.
deals. And I feel like this is prime, pun intended, I guess. This is a prime example of that, where it's like, I could sell Cometeer for 50 cents, or we could do a bunch of hard work and get, a much fatter margin on our own coffee. And Steve and I are actively thinking about that. I don't want to take brand deals forever. I want to own something. And so this really lines up for that in my mind.
Yeah. No. You see it everywhere. It's almost to a degree where I'm like, is this a good thing for the world? Because if you go anywhere, like to any store, there's like some product being featured, and it's always a celebrity product. Like we were at Target the other day, and he The Rock launched his new brand.
Yep.
Right.
I love The Rock, and I think he's awesome, and I'm excited for him.
Same.
But
Yeah.
like everything, like all those gin,
Yep.
there's a bunch of like alcohol companies with
Yeah.
celebrities
That was
behind
the
them.
playbook, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like at this point, can you make a product without first being I feel like we're getting to a point where it's like kind of going into that direction. But yeah,
Mhm.
it is such a crazy advantage because the main cost of any product is what's your cost of acquisition, and it's basically
Mhm.
zero when you're in this category.
Yeah. And I mean, in the old days, right? Everything was so much more centralized. Like, oh, I'm going to advertise in front of Seinfeld and I'm guaranteed 80 million people to see my product, right? And so,
Right.
like, that's where everything went. But now you don't have any centralized points like that. So it's like, okay, well, how do I get in front of people? Well, people still pay attention to, whatever their influencer is that they like, whether it's a YouTube star or a musician or whatever. And so it's like, well, now that's how we get products in front of people, right? Is we go to them instead. And there was actually a super interesting article about McDonald's the other day. I think it was New York Times or something. It was like how like 20 years ago, everybody was like, McDonald's is the worst. It's going to kill you, right? All this stuff. And then they started making all these deals with like musicians, and they basically did this. And like now it's, more than doubled in stock price in the last 20 years or whatever. It's like they just had the playbook a little ahead of everybody, but they did all these brand partnerships and influencer partnerships and all this stuff.
So it's not going to kill you anymore.
It
Now it's
probably is going
healthy.
to kill you, but it doesn't matter.
Kill you.
It doesn't
but somebody
matter
else got
because
rich off of it, which is awesome.
90% of America has had a meal at McDonald's in the last week or whatever, right? So it's like literally it's something like 85 or 90%. And so yeah, so
50% of America's obese. So
yeah,
Wow.
well, I know. I'm not
No,
saying
there's
it's good.
surely
I'm just
not a
saying
correlation
it works.
there. Yeah.
I'm just saying it works. But yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think the root of it all is we genuinely, I don't think any of us care if this is like massively successful or not, which is very different from anything else I work on. It's just like we all like each other, and it's like an excuse to hang out. And especially with these conference things we're doing, it's like a very easy way for all of us to get together and have it all be paid by this larger thing. So if it's just breaking even and it's a way for us to like have a good time, that's really all it needs to do. But we'll see.
Surprisingly heartwarming from Dax. That wasn't on my bingo
kumbaya
card.
moment there. Yeah.
I don't need to crush the souls of my enemies. I just want to hang out with my friends. Is not
always,
what I expected.
I'm always fascinated by business people, and like they're like, what I do to relax is I have another business. I have this other business over here. This is my relaxation business that's separate from my actual business. Like, you just see that all the time. Like,
but like genuinely, with this type of thing, I just feel like we can't lose. So I'll give you a perfect example, right? So we shipped out all these boxes, and it's the first time shipping everything out. And like people were getting them in some horrible conditions. Like they all got crushed. It looked like they got just destroyed. But that just became a meme. Like people were posting about it, and it just became a joke. So it's like you just can't lose with stuff like this.
Let's go back. You're coming to Laracon. What's everybody? I know Prime is going to be speaking.
Yeah.
So what's the story?
So we are trying to. So basically, what we did for React Miami was a little bit ad hoc, but we're trying to formalize it a little bit more. Where we show up to a conference a couple days before. We'll do like a bunch of streaming to get people excited online. We'll do a custom blend with a custom bag for people at the conference. Like they can buy it there. They'll be in our store a week advance. Maybe the conference can buy a bunch to give out as speaker gifts or something like that. So we just do, and then we serve the coffee there for the people that are there.
I love it.
Yeah. So for React Miami, like just on Twitter, we did like more than like 10 million impressions or so. Jeez. And then Prime streams each day, there were like 30 to 40,000 people that watched. So these are like pretty crazy numbers that are hard to tap into otherwise. And we're pretty cheap for, if you look at like CPM wise, like
because y'all are in it for the friendships. So you don't care. Yeah, you don't care if it makes
literally
now's the time to get in.
If it covers our costs and we get to hang out for a week, it's kind of worth
are y'all gonna come to the Aaron Francis studio of Light and Sound and do some streaming out of here? Yeah, of course you can.
That's such a good idea.
That would be amazing.
Yes, of course.
That is a really good idea. We'll get stuff nailed down and we'll see. Because the big variability here is like if we do have an Airbnb, we don't know what like the internet or situation is.
Sure,
so that would be pretty helpful.
Yeah. You can't all stay here because it's literally my office and there are no beds. But you're welcome to come up here and stream.
Is
great.
it still a separate? It's not like part of your house, right? It's
correct. It is not. Yeah.
Okay.
You are welcome to swing by the house, but probably not stay there for very long either. It's kind of we got a lot going on at the house.
A lot of babies.
I can't handle degenerates just streaming all day at the kitchen table.
Man, it was wild when they were doing that in my house. It was
It looks like fun. I watched a lot of it.
Yeah, it was super fun. One of Liz's friends like came by to pick something up. He walks into the door. And she sees Prime just go up to a camera and just start like thrusting.
Yep.
Just a bunch of like crazy thrusting maneuvers.
Yeah.
And I just saw her face just being like what is going? Because Liz's friends just do not understand what I do for a living.
You never want one of your offline friends to wander in.
They didn't clear it up at all. Yeah.
And she saw that, and that's all she saw, and she left.
Yep.
Oh man,
Like, this is how we
the
make
tricky
money.
part with like conferences and stuff though. It's like everybody wants to see you guys, right? It's like, but how many conferences can you actually do in a year and things like that?
Mhm.
There are these like just limits of like,
Yeah.
you know, what you can do. But
Yeah. But the conference thing is more for fun. Like, it's just,
Yeah,
we'll do like it once a quarter. We'll try to find a conference to do. And
little
it's a way for us to like
vacation,
talk together. Yeah. Basically. But
get out in the
Man,
world.
that's gonna be fun. I'm so glad y'all are gonna come.
Yeah, this
Hopefully,
is awesome.
if
I
not,
love
just
this.
try to
I'm so
secure the
inspired.
deal tomorrow on your podcast with Taylor live on air. Be like,
Yeah,
hey,
yeah.
I just
Negotiate
wanted
the
to
terms.
check in on this.
First item. First
Yeah.
item.
Yeah.
Close the deal.
yeah.
All right, are we done with coffee? I want to hear about Adam's course, or do we have more
Yeah.
coffee?
No, that's it for coffee. Like I said, the summary is coffee from the terminal. You can buy it soon. I don't drink coffee, but you should still trust me that it's good coffee.
Also,
Yeah, it's really
this is what I said earlier about your podcast. This is a perfect example. It's like, hey, do you want to start a coffee company? Well, I don't actually drink coffee, but I've got 4 friends that are coffee roasters, and I know this guy. It's like, oh, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
And, it's at terminal.shop, so that's where you
Yes.
can get it. And there's a crazy ass command line terminal that you paste in, and just hope it all goes okay. It'll be
Yeah.
fine. Don't worry about it.
By
It's
the
at
way, the
terminal.shop,
reason I know
that's where you can't get it. You
Yeah,
have to
you
go
can't
to
get it.
your
Yeah.
terminal.
if you can't SSH, we don't want your money. That's our slogan.
That's it.
That's our slogan.
By the way, the reason I know all these people, Adam, is because I lived in a city around other people, and it's one of the
Ah,
benefits
I
of
see.
being in a city.
Bringing it back.
There you go.
That is
Okay.
true.
That's
That is
a
true.
callback right there. All
Well,
right,
I
Adam.
know all these people too. Sorry, I know all these people from the internet. So there you go.
But
I
you
don't
don't
the
know any
roasters.
coffee
The
roasters,
coffee
yeah.
roasters.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, you don't know
yeah.
anyone that can do anything in real life.
Know anyone that has any skills in the physical
I just
world?
have to know you, and now I get the benefits of all of those people.
Yeah, no, I know.
That's great.
I'm saying
That's
someone
true.
had to live in New York, okay? In this whole
Okay.
chain of events.
Yeah. So Adam,
Uh,
you are working. Are you working with Joel Hooks on this badass
I am.
dev? Okay,
Yeah.
tell us. You're working on a full-on course.
A full-on course. It's Joel, the way he puts it, it's like a full-on small business. It's like
is.
I want to like teach. I really do
Mhm.
genuinely want that to be like as a kid. Before I wanted to do anything, before I knew anything about computers, I wanted to be a teacher. Like I wanted to be a college professor for some reason. I really don't know why that specifically. Like I didn't want to be a high school teacher. I want to be a college. Maybe it's a little more sophisticated. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to teach, and I've always enjoyed like explaining things to people, like to a fault. That it's like annoying. People get tired of me like trying to explain something they don't even want to learn, that kind of thing. So it's an outlet. It's like now I'm finally taking steps. It's always been this thing I thought I'd get to in my career, and I just never kind of like made the time. Always busy with other stuff, and still busy with other stuff, but yeah, I'm pretty excited. Like we're doing kind of the first steps. Like have a paid workshop next month. It's
Mhm.
kind of the first
Oh, wow.
big step. But it's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna be like the rest of this year. Really, like the first full thing you could buy and like take a course will be sometime probably in the fall. Yeah, I'm pumped. And then I see you like you're doing a course, and you're like, yeah, we're gonna launch it next month. Like, I'm sorry, what?
Aaron,
How do you do
Yeah,
this?
well, I'm not running a startup, and I'm not running a coffee
You're not
startup.
selling coffee. It's true.
Yeah, so
It's
I
true.
have a little bit more time, and I don't follow like Joel has a very good prescribed method where you like do a little freebie, then you do a course, then you do a workshop, and then you do a bunch of emails. Like we're just not doing any of that, and so it cuts the timeline a lot.
I do love like working with Joel. Just having someone kind of like tell me what to do, because I feel like if I were just doing it on my own, I would never do it. I would just never get there. But now I have like people that are like stakeholders and like asking things of me.
Yep.
That's been very helpful. Like I feel like I've finally taken real steps.
So I want to hear about the process of working with them, because it's a very interesting business model for them where they find people like you, talented creators, and like basically midwife them through the process of creating a course. And
birth
so
you.
yeah, so like how did y'all get hooked up, and what's it been like working with because they've got a whole team. It's like 8-10 people over there.
Yeah. It's a lot of the Egghead folks, I think I can say that. I
Mhm.
mean, it's like he's got this team that has worked on developer education for so long and together, and like they're all effective working together. And they just kind of like the way he puts it, I think I can say this, is that they're like taking bets on different creators to kind of like hit a certain niche. So they have got this team. They do a lot of work to kind of like do the stuff I wouldn't want to do, is the way he puts it. Like I get to just focus on like teaching the thing and making videos and trying to like understand, what are my students going to want to learn? How am I going to take them from A to B? And then they do everything else, like the website, and they manage the live workshops and all that kind of stuff. They sell the seats and they do the stuff that's just like, I'm sure I would spend a lot of time doing that stuff and maybe even enjoy it because I'm a programmer, like building the website. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
It's so nice to not be thinking about that, or like building like a language, or what's the word? The learning, what are they called?
Platform. Yeah.
Yeah. Like everyone who ends up doing a course ends up building like their own platform for teaching, like for hosting their video course. And they're doing that, but I don't have to do it. So it's nice. I like it.
And presumably they send out email. You give them content, but they send out emails and set up drip sequences and do all of that stuff.
Yeah, they do all that stuff.
They do everything except recording and editing, right? You edit your own stuff.
I'm editing my own stuff, but they do have people for that. Like they do have an editor that, and for some of the people that they've done courses with, all the editing was done there in-house by their people. So
cool.
That's an option. I took screencasting.com, so I feel
I've heard of that. That's great.
I feel like I can kind of make my way around the screen flow, and I'm figuring it out.
That's amazing. What a great domain. That's really cool.
Yeah. Excellent course. Excellent course.
Thanks. You also have not mentioned what your course is about, or
I was just going to find
it.
That's why I had people to take care of that stuff.
Exactly. I'm not so good at the marketing. So it's pro AWS. It's basically like, so I started on AWS like 10 years ago, but I'm very much like a practical like web developer. I'm a startup founder, so like I'm very like, I want to build things, and I'm not like an enterprisey, like a lot of the cloud is made up of like enterprise education, like teaching very large teams how to leverage the cloud. But there's kind of this gap for like, I'm a small team, or I'm a startup, or I'm an individual that wants to build big, powerful things, and I want to leverage AWS to do it. Like it's basically my consulting work. So I did consulting for startups for a few years, independent. And I'm basically doing that, like taking small startup teams and helping them leverage AWS. So it's that angle. It's like you're a web developer, but you want to build on AWS.
And I know that you're too nice to brag on yourself, but you also speed ran all of the AWS certifications and got them all within like a month or like 8 days or something silly like that.
Gosh.
It's been a few years ago now, but I did them in 6 weeks. So I did, there's like 12 of them. I did 2 a week. It was sort of like a parlor trick. Like people ask me, like, what's the value of certification? Like, how do you feel about certification? I don't know. I don't really care.
We're talking about it now, so it works.
Yes. Yeah. No, I thought it'd be like a fun, like.
They made you a hero, tests. Adam. They literally were like.
Make me I mean, that was one of the things, probably, surely. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was like a fun challenge. It was like, can I do these really, really fast?
Yeah, we use AWS, and I feel like that's just a great course topic because it's like an infinite source.
It's infinite. It really is.
There's so much stuff in there. Nobody has any idea how it works. Like you're always scared touching anything. It's like
and for like if you're a web developer, it's a very narrow slice of it that you really need.
Very small.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like just helping guide people through this very like vast landscape.
Yeah.
And like here's the stuff that matters to you.
And the thing with AWS is there's always like 5 ways to do the same thing, but there's actually only one that you should pick, and no one ever picks that one. So a lot of this is just teaching them what the right one is.
There's weird stuff like, do I need the API gateway thing? And I'm getting charged more money for some weird reason. I don't totally understand. And I like those.
Yeah. There's every little trick.
I feel like this is lining up exactly with my database course experience, in that a lot of like the education is curation. Like there's so much information, and literally 10% of it applies to like a modern web developer. And I feel like a lot of my job is to read through everything and then figure out like, okay, here's the important stuff. Do you feel the same way?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like the one advantage I think I'll have going into teaching this stuff is like I'm having a hard time getting the material done because I'm still like managing a very large consumer site deployed on AWS that I've been building for a decade. So like I still do this work. It's not like a distant thing to me that like I don't have practical experience with. I think that's a big advantage. Like when you know the thing because you build on the thing, it's like I can't really go wrong as long as I'm staying rooted in that work. Like I know that my advice plays out in a real world
Mhm.
scenario because I'm living it like right now.
Wow, that's cool. I'm excited for you. ProAWS.dev?
.dev, they
So-
did buy the .com
Dot-
for
They
some
did?
money. Yeah, it just redirects to .dev. But
Oh,
Oh,
you
man.
gotta
It's
doc-
the advantage
like
is
run that the other
working
way.
with the right people.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
you're kind of like it's like you're signed to a label. That's what it sounds like.
Kind of, yeah.
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 Or like a publishing house, like a book
Yeah.
publisher. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's
a very
cool.
cool model. Yeah.
Here's a funny thing. So Adam is using SST for the course. I believe this course is going to do extremely well. I think it's going to make more money than we do at SST.
I should,
Oh,
we
God.
should
that's
work
gonna
out
be
some
fun.
kind of deal here, I guess.
No,
I should be
it's fine.
giving back to the hand that feeds me.
It's
That is
amazing.
fun. This is like the open source dilemma, right? It's
Yep.
like people are making money on all your work, and how do
Mhm.
you
No, it's great.
navigate that?
Yeah. I'm actually, I think it's fine. Like, we're just 3 people. It's not hard to find ways to sustain ourselves. So,
Oh, it's great exposure
sounds
too. If
really
the course
hard,
does
but-
well, yeah.
It does sound hard, yeah. Steve and I are just 2 people, and we're like, oh man, where's the money going to come from? So, all right, one last thing I forgot.
Okay.
Laracon blend. It's got to. What are you going to call it? Are you going to call it like
No.
Lambo blend or?
There's some
gotta
names
use-
we have
floating
some
around.
ideas.
Okay.
I don't think we should leak it yet. Yeah. We
No,
should
Okay,
probably
that's
leave it.
fine.
But
Keep
That's
it.
fine.
we don't know what it is. If you have any ideas,
Well, yeah.
please send it to us because obviously
Okay.
we don't know what makes for a
Well,
funny joke.
David is a Laravel developer.
Oh, that's
David
true. We
is
do
a
have
Laravel
one.
developer,
Yes,
yeah.
we do have
He-
one.
He's been
Mhm.
great to like ideate on this front.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Nice.
But yeah, we could use any more ideas. Throw them at
Well, if you need, if you need a vibe check before you go to press, just
There you
send
go.
it to me and Ian,
There
and
you
we'll
go.
tell you
Yes.
like, ooh, that's gonna work or that's
Yeah.
not gonna work. Um,
Maybe we should make fun of PHP developers. Maybe that should be the angle.
That is your
like I
angle
said,
normally.
should
like I
offend
said,
everyone.
we need a vibe check. Send it to us before you print it, and we will help you. Yeah. What an interesting idea.
There's a lot
Yeah.
of subtleties in there, though. There's like some people just consider themselves Laravel developers and not PHP developers, and so
Yep.
there's internal
Oh, wow. I see.
factions.
Internal
within
strife.
I feel like there's
the
some very obvious
ecosystem.
names for what we would do that people
There's definitely
you
a
guys are
couple
probably
ones,
thinking
I
of.
think.
Yeah. There's a couple
Ian-
that are very obvious.
Do you remember the funny error that we always used to get in PHP? Unexpected, like T punonucoditum or
Oh,
whatever that was.
It's like a Hebrew word. Yeah, there's just like this
Yeah.
random Hebrew word because like the initial developers, there was a lot of like Israeli developers and stuff, and like there's this one error you would always get in PHP. I can't remember it, but
That's
it's
What
so
a
was
crazy
that
word.
word?
That-
You gotta
it-
always
it
put that in the
means
back.
nothing. Like you have no idea what it means. I didn't even know it was like a Hebrew word for like 20 years or it was like 10 years probably.
This is a deep
And it's just
cut.
like, what
I like
the
it.
hell
Oh,
does this mean?
man.
I don't know if it's like a bad
T
include or
Pamium Nicodotium.
yeah,
Is
that's
that
Yeah,
what
yeah,
it is?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
That's
Or
it.
maybe
I
it's
think
like
it's
a
an
quote. Is it a quote?
No, I think it's an
quote or-
unexpected double
Double
semicolon.
colon. Yeah.
Double colon.
Okay.
double
So we
colon.
gotta put
Yeah.
that in
Okay.
the bag somewhere. That's a
Somewhere.
nice.
There you go.
nice
You should
tip.
put that in the bag. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for the
will
old
show,
heads out there.
That will
yeah.
show everyone at a PHP conference that like you're one of us.
You are one of us.
If,
Yes.
if the blend is called T-Nucleodium or whatever it is, everyone will be
Yeah.
like, "Holy crap, they're
And
PHP
you're
developers!"
you're from before the linters and the
Yeah,
IDE
exactly.
fixed everything
Yeah.
for you and everything. Like you're just in
Yeah.
there in a text editor, like hacking around and
Hey,
Trying to
that's
figure out
actually
the
true.
center.
I did PHP for
Yeah.
at least a year.
There you go.
But I
A
don't
long
remember
time
that.
there you
ago.
go. One
I
of
did
us.
it a long time ago.
Yeah.
One of us. PHP's the greatest. It's a whole
Yeah,
conversation.
that's
I love
good.
it.
We'll get shirts with that printed on there, just so.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
I'd buy that. I'd buy that on
I'd buy that,
terminal.shop.
honestly.
Yeah. There you go.
Unexpected
Two customers right there.
Paranucleodium.
Yeah, we have to solve a leak code to check out. So
No,
Yeah,
forget it.
well.
I don't want to do any of that real
you're gonna lose a lot
programming.
of you're gonna lose a lot of
Yeah.
us in that one. I'll be
Yeah.
honest.
Only that way it is kind of funny to have like certain items that only people smart enough can like
Yeah.
Mhm.
get those items and stuff. Like I mean, I won't get any of them, but that'll be fun. It's fun knowing it's out there.
Another
Smart
version of
people
this
out there.
joke was there's like different levels to those leak code challenges. We were thinking that randomly we'd drop in like an extra hard one, and if you got it right, we would increase the price instead of decrease it because clearly
You guys
clearly
are
you can
so
afford
bad at this.
clearly you can afford it.
I thought you were gonna say like you personally deliver it or something. Like you just
No,
show
no,
up yourself
No,
and deliver
we
it.
just
That'd
make
be
them
great.
feel bad for spending the time. to do it.
You spent 2 hours solving this. That's too bad for you. Now it's $52 to buy your bag of coffee.
Goodness gracious.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys, for coming on. This was
Yeah, this is super
awesome.
fun.
Thanks for having us.
Worked
Of
great.
course.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Dax. We'll be interacting with you on Twitter, I'm sure. And
Yeah.
so check out their stuff. We'll link it all up below with terminal.shop with coffee and How About Tomorrow podcast. So yeah, check all that stuff out. And SST. And
Whatever
Stat
that is.
News. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever SST is. I
If
am
you
jealous of
figure
it.
it out,
Whenever I
let
look
us
at
know.
it, it's like, yeah. I love the idea of it, but as much as I know about it. But anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Thanks.
See ya.